Welcome, Yaseen. It's so great to have you on our first episode of Student Voices.
Thank you so much, Sheri. I'm glad to be here.
Amazing. So, why don't we kick off? If you could tell folks a little bit about yourself, about Luna, and the amazing unlock and the opportunity that you saw as a founder to get started.
Yeah, of course. So my name's Yaseen. Born and raised in Johannesburg, South Africa. Made the move over to the United States to complete my undergrad back in 2018. Graduated in 2023 with a degree in supply chain management and logistics, finance, and business analytics, and made the return back to South Africa to work as a management consultant at Carney. There, I worked as a business analyst where I was working on engagements in the oil and gas sector, mining sector, as well as FMCG, both across Africa and the Middle East. So got a ton of exposure there. Yeah, it was there that I saw the kind of detriment that these businesses were having on local communities around them, and so decided to look at some degrees that were focused more on the sustainability side of things, and eventually got accepted to Columbia. And so I've been pursuing my master's degree at Columbia with a master's in sustainability management since September of last year. So I graduated in December of this year. Very
Yay!
excited. Thank you, Sheri. Thank you. Between that time, it was actually towards the end of my time at Carney, end of 2024, that I founded a business called Luna, which is a personalized resume review service that has taken the landscape, and we've assisted over, well, we're verging on 1,000 clients so far across 43 different countries. And yeah, we've just hit the ground running and really just changed the game when it comes to resume reviews.
That's incredible. And I know that you, again, you're operating at a really unique intersection, what I would call overlooked value, where talent is everywhere, but access isn't everywhere, and it's not available to a lot of people. And you talk about value that sits in people, materials, emerging markets, and I love that your Luna helps young professionals reclaim agency in a job market that can feel very impersonal, and with all the things that we're hearing about AI right now, a bit of doom and gloom, if I may. So let's talk a little bit about the problem that you felt compelled to answer as a young professional, the single system story.
Yeah, I mean, you brought up some brilliant points there, and it is this agency in a job market that feels, you're fighting an uphill battle, and with the mass adoption of generative AI, it feels as if everyone is being pushed to use it. And, something that we advocate to our clients and something that we kind of set up, something that sets Luna apart is that we use very minimal touch when it comes to AI. Documents with our clients at least 3 or 4 times. It's not, hey, Sheri, we're going to take your resume and just give it back to you with inputs. It's an iterative process where we do customize the resume to the 5 to 6 roles that you're looking to apply for. So I think when you mentioned agency and emerging markets as well, the concept of Luna was actually started off of the back of the pro bono consulting kind of work that I did at Drexel. So which was my institution for my undergrad. There was a peer mentorship program. So students like myself could offer advice and insights to other peers, but we only had 15-minute time slots to really give those insights. And so it did feel quite unpersonal, because what kind of insights can you derive in 15 minutes? And so I would schedule 30 and 40-minute follow-up calls. And I soon became like the point of contact for all students on campus who really wanted a thorough resume review. And so it was there that Luna, for the longest time, was actually a pro bono business. We didn't charge anyone, right? We built up a case of 500 clients that we were able to assist in majority emerging markets, people
Wow.
that didn't have access to formal resume kind of assistance and didn't actually know what a resume should look like. I mean, if I had to screen share some examples of resumes that we've kind of brought out of I mean, we've seen the craziest kinds of resumes where it's simply just a first name, a last name, an email, a phone number, and the school that they've gone to. No
Can I
skills.
make a confession?
Okay, yeah.
So even with all the experience and credentials that I have, I struggle with the resume and CV. It's either way too long because I
Yeah.
put so much in it, all the things, and most recruiters or most people hiring, they don't really look past the first page.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
have a really hard time talking about like my value proposition. And even with a lot of folks, a lot of younger professionals, mid-career professionals that I know that I speak to, it's hard because when you say supply chain, that could mean like 20 things. And you want to be a bit of a generalist. You don't want to niche yourself down, or maybe you do. But for me, I found you want to be multidisciplinary in that you appeal to transformative topics or opportunities, but you also don't want to be so broad that people are like, what the hell do you do again? So how do you help? I mean, you have tons of experience. By the way, I would love to be a Luna customer. You have tons of experience. How do people like how do they get started? Like what's the number one thing that you find is common across the 1,000+ people that you've helped?
Yeah, I think firstly, I mean, we've got you covered. If you need Luna to assist, we've got you covered, Luna. But yeah, I think when it comes to some main kind of takeaways from all of the clients that we've from ideally we were looking at early entry professionals, but as time has advanced and as we've become more popular, we've started seeing clients with 15 years of work experience, 10 years of work experience come and say like, hey, listen, how can I synthesize my document into one page? And so, I mean, to your point, what's difficult is really putting what's pertinent on the document. So I think everyone is so pressured to put everything that they've done into one page. But it's very specific to the role that you're applying for. So if you see that there's, first of all, if you've been working for 10 years, I don't think that you should be putting experiences from 8 years ago on your document.
Really?
It should really only be between 5 and 7 years work experience on your document. Like you mentioned, recruiters only looking at that top third of your document. You can mention in your professional summary that you have 10 plus years of work experience, but you're also putting it back on the recruiter to say, wow, okay, I'm interested. They say that they've got 10 years of work experience, but they've mentioned 2 roles here and it kind of cuts off at like maybe seven years. Like, what are some of the other experiences? It allows you to then insert other things like in our skills, languages, and certification sections, we build out things like core competencies, technical proficiencies, spoken languages. If you're in coding, we've got your coding languages. So there's different ways that we can really make your document versatile. But to your point about like key takeaways on documents that we've seen, is formatting is very, very, very important. You'll be amazed to see like the formatting errors that we see, the spelling errors, making it easily readable and digestible for a recruiter or for a hiring manager that's looking at your document. It could be the size of the font, it could be the style of the font, all of those kinds of things. And then
This is
I think
incredible.
as well is quantifying impact. That is, I would say, one of the most important things on your document is, or facets of your document is, employees want to see that you can deliver tangible impact. They want to see that, hey, listen, when I hire Sheri or if I hire Yaseen, they're going to be able to influence the people around them, bring them on this journey and benefit the business, right? So quantifying impact wherever you go is very important. And I think a lot of the time our clients say, well, how do I
How do
quantify?
I do that?
How did I quantify the impact that I've had? And you just start off with the small things. How many reports do you deal with on a monthly basis? How much data do you deal with on a monthly basis? How many teams do you interact with? How many employees? What kind of industries do your clients work in? The portfolio size of some of these clients. You can keep it very ambiguous, right? Obviously, coming from consulting, whenever I mention kind of the clients or the projects that I've worked on, it's a mining client or an FMCG client. I'm not naming them, but I am mentioning that they've worked in a specific industry.
Yeah, that's fantastic feedback. And when we think about impact, it's not always financial performance. I think now the industry in the age of AI, automation, the future of work, it really becomes very people centric. And how are you able to accentuate and accelerate the human experience in this modernization of the workplace. And so some of the non-financial performance and impact areas I think are becoming even more important. And that's great for early and mid career professionals, because if you are able to motivate and influence outcomes, if you are able to bring clarity in the midst of complete chaos, like a lot of supply chain procurement logistics professionals right now, it really helps you stand out. And I just wanted to say one thing, just I've hired a lot of people in my career, and I've supported very large teams. I've served thousands of folks, tens of thousands of folks over the course of my career. I love the anti-resume. And it's a bit provocative. I know we're going to talk about career tips, but when I'm hiring someone, I look for all the things that aren't on the paper. I want to know when things didn't work out and how you were able to overcome that. And so how do folks crystallize some of those intangibles that are critical for success in role? What would your advice be to those sorts of things?
Yeah, I think those are lovely comments. And I think it goes to being personal and us iterating the document. It puts our clients in a position where we're in a business of optimizing the odds of you getting your foot through the door. We don't do any interview prep, but through our iteration of your document, you start to understand the broader impact that you had in the business. And I think that's the danger with using AI to construct your document, is that it's detaching you from understanding the impact that you've had. I think a lot of the time, and I'm guilty, when when ChatGPT came out, you would prompt things and, in the grander scheme, just trying to make things quicker, and you wouldn't read over some of your inputs. And I think that's what we see in a lot of our clients' documents, is that they can't even relay back what they've put in their resume. If I sit down with them and I say, okay, tell me about your time at Oracle, or tell me about your time at Walmart, they can't even tell me the 3 bullet points that they've put on their document. And it's evident, I guess, to your point, it's evident to see whether someone understands what their journey is. To counterbalance that, that's why we do iterate the document with our clients, so that they can understand and say, hey, listen, I've actually got some sort of agency here to tell an effective story. So I think that's the power of Luna's. Yes, we use minimal touch when it comes to AI, but it's really working with the client to really kind of advocate for them and say, hey, listen, you've got this. You've demonstrated impact and you've been able to assist others around you. I think a lot of the time when people start their document, or when they start their job search, they doubt themselves and they say, am I really worth this role that I'm applying to? And it really just does take some time and some effort to build out that document and that story.
Yeah, I love what you're describing, because this is a real paradigm shift. And that's why Luna is such a great organization to highlight, because you have so much AI-driven, the illusion of AI-driven personalization. It actually is extractive, and it's not capturing the essence of who you are and your unique value proposition in the job market. And one thing that I find fascinating, and when I was at IBM, there's a partner that comes to mind. His name is Randall Jackson. And he was part of the AI fairness in HR practices. So think about right now, we have AI reading and screening AI.
Yeah.
And all of the bias that is just piled and loaded into, you're using Claude, which is homogenizing your value, right? And it's, it might be giving you all the keywords and all the things that you think you need to put in your resume, but then you have an algorithm or a solution that's screening these resumes. And so it's just AI on top of AI interacting with each other. And so what Luna does is it blows up that paradigm, and it actually incorporates all of the great things that make us human, and all of the things that are unique to each one of the people listening to this and each one of the people in the job market. And that's what I love about how disruptive your solution is in the market right now.
It really means a lot, Sheri. And I think it's when I mention to clients that we don't use AI, they kind of are shocked. They go, wait, but then my resume isn't going to be competitive. But it's the opposite, right? You are the one that's taking the effort to really bring out that story and make it personable. And it tells a world of difference. I mean, we've had clients that have been actively applying for 4 or 5 weeks, just struggling to get any kind of feedback from recruiters and from companies. A week, within 2 weeks of using a Luna product, they have feedback. And so, I mean, we're always posting testimonials on our LinkedIn. That's the only social media that we have. We only post on LinkedIn. We don't do any paid marketing. All of our clients so far are referral based. So we don't make
Oh,
any money
wow.
from referrals. It's purely friends and family or friends of friends and acquaintances saying, "Hey, listen, I heard that you're searching for a role. Luna, you should check them out." They don't make any money. Obviously, we, benefit from their business, but it also drives us to deliver a fantastic product, and it's a personable product. We're dealing with people. We're not dealing with robots.
Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to double click a little bit on your background. You mentioned some work in Africa. You're from South Africa. How do you connect the supply chain background that you have and some of the circular economy work and really drive in emerging markets what the opportunity narrative is? Because I'm a fan. I believe that the largest opportunity that we have right now is to tap into Africa. Highlighted the opportunity on the 10 Big Ideas series, which was season 2 of the Supply Chain Revolution podcast. We know there's an enormous opportunity in the just the amount of people, right, over the next 10 years by 2030, 2035, the largest population available, and all of the leapfrog innovation investments that are happening on the continent. So tell me how you're connecting that experience into Luna and into serving markets outside of the US.
It's an excellent question, and I think it ties into my narrative of even venturing over to the US and returning back. But I had two parents that were born in Zimbabwe, right? And born pre-independence. I think growing up, there was always this kind of talk about how South Africa had this kind of instability post independence, and they were very worried that the quality of their education that we would be receiving at a tertiary level, was under threat. And so they were always pushing us to study overseas. But it was evident that when I decided to venture over to the US for my undergrad, it was this brain drain that is happening in the region, especially in Southern Africa, in Zimbabwe, in South Africa, in Mozambique. All of these countries that have such great talent are exiting the country and not coming back. And so it's really about access and it's about opportunity. And I think a lot of the time in emerging markets, like you mentioned, your big bets on Africa, there's this perceived risk that operating on the continent, yes, it comes with a lot of trials and tribulations and it's quite a tough operating environment, but it's also a rewarding environment as well. If you're operating a business here on the continent, you're directly impacting the communities around you because there aren't a lot of big players. Yes, South Africa, I think, is an exception to that rule because it's essentially kind of a powerhouse when it comes to business. But operating throughout the continent, I mean, we've helped people from Uganda, from Kenya, we had a client from Sierra Leone, all in the logistics space that are looking to really build out a document that reflects the quality of work that they've done. If anything, they've done spectacular work because they've been able to affect and benefit the communities that they serve in. To answer your question, Africa is the future. I am very bold
I
on
agree.
the future of the continent, and it's one of the reasons why, even after my graduation from Columbia, I'm looking to return back. I think there's a plethora of opportunities, and it's kind of this belief that as time progresses and as we start to build a kind of youth across the continent that are capable of delivering impact, that Africa will.
Absolutely. And so I want to tap into your operating style because I think you have an incredible background. I have a very dear friend who was also at Kearney and, really industrialized like data and analytics and like very focused on outcomes. And so your operating style and your ability to execute, to take this ambition, idea, and actually create a platform that connects others. How do you balance that consulting discipline, the builder, founder energy, but then also the humility and the empathy that you have to empower student-led ecosystems?
Great. That's a great question. And I think it ties back to, I mean, I was fortunate enough to have two parents that were entrepreneurs growing up. And so I always had this kind of entrepreneurial drive when I was younger, and even throughout my adolescence, even now, I still have that strong entrepreneurial drive. And it's one of the reasons why I gravitated toward Connie. I think Connie has a very strong entrepreneurial mindset when it comes to the way that they operate, right? It's kind of grabbing opportunities with both hands and really trying to, like you mentioned, deliver impact. But I'm sure, as you know, as a consultant, we kind of develop this toolkit where we're able to take the big picture and distill it into some sort of story that we can walk a client down, right? We're taking the as is, the current state, and where do we want to take them to this to be, this future state. And so I loved my time in consulting. I thought it was a fantastic opportunity, and if anything, it set me apart from my peers
Wow.
in Colombia. I think the way that I approach problem sets, the way that I approach presentations, the quality of presentations, I'm still aligning boxes. I'm still aligning
Oh,
things to
wow.
make sure that they're
We
to make
differ
sure that
there. I'm recovering. I have a bittersweet relationship with big professional services, big four, both, my roles that I've held. I recall myself a recovering consultant.
recovering.
But go ahead.
It's it was hard. There were hard times, but I think that the toolkit that I was able to derive from that experience has elevated, like you mentioned, the way that I approach scaling the business. But at the same time, you can't be too rigid in the way that you approach problems, right? There has to be flexibility. And I'm sure that, you can relate in scaling the podcast or scaling some of your other ventures, is that if you put yourself in a box all the time, that's what you're going to think in. You're going to think in this box, and you're going to think by the rules and kind of follow all of these processes and procedures. But when you're a founder and when you're running a startup, you have to break rules, because then you're not going to accelerate your development. I think those rules and those procedures are relevant in businesses that are more mature and that need to be structured so that their employees or that their quality of service doesn't deteriorate. But I'm fortunate
Absolutely.
enough to be in a phase right now where I'm able to, I mean, we don't even have SOPs for the way that we approach resumes. We take a different approach to every single resume, whether you come from a chemical engineering background, whether you come from a civil engineering background, or as a consultant, we always take a fresh look at your document, because if we have this cookie cutter approach, then we're going to deliver a cookie cutter product.
And that's something unique to Kearney, I find, is whiteboarding sort of. And let me just step back for a second. So, in a lot of consulting environments, you need solution development and standardization for scale, or at least that's the illusion, because when you have that toolkit or that solution suite, products or alliances go to market, that with that standardization, rinse, repeat, that's how you get scale. We're in a paradigm shift, though, as you just
Yeah.
mentioned. And I'm a fan of the three L's, and that's listen to your client, listen more than you speak, learn, and that the challenges that we have right now are solved by learners, not by knowers. Look at the state of the world. And then leading, empowering your clients to lead the revolution. And so I love what you just described, because going in with that perspective of, I want to meet you where you are, and I want to personalize this experience so you get the best value out of it. I don't want to come with this prescriptive
Yeah.
format, and that framework can be helpful, but you're right, when you box it in and you become too prescriptive, can lose the essence of what makes someone unique. So it's a really, really great perspective. I know that we're almost at time. One last question, the bigger idea. So what is the future look like in your mind in, I want to say 2030, but I realize that's only less than 4 years away. Like, what do you imagine the future of this space that you're creating in the next 5 to 10 years? Like, if you could close your eyes and wave a wand.
It's an excellent question, and I think it goes back to a point that you raised previously, is that when we have AI talking to AI, who's going to be in the middle? It kind of talks about this dead internet theory where if you've got content creators that are generating Gen AI content, and then you've got bots or you've got other kind of automated, I don't know, agents interacting with that content, the internet's not going to have anyone on it later down the line. So I think when it comes to, I would hope that there's some sort of large scale regulation that occurs that kind of really, that's a conversation for another day. I think, Gen AI is a competitive advantage, a national security advantage for a lot of, when I'm looking at the world of talent, it goes back to your point about kind of creating these in-person engagements again. Hiring managers, sitting down with applicants and really trying to detail out how they are, one, fluent in using these tools, but are they able to interact with people? We don't want to see a reverse where we essentially become like robots. We want to maintain that kind of that personality that we have. That's what created us, and that's what brought us together as kind of a collective of humankind, is that we were able to interact and engage with one another. And be very worried to see what that looks like when we take away that in-person engagement and interaction.
Absolutely. And even, one of the things I found in my career is, even if you have a strategy, and you could name the McBees, right? You could name any Big Four consulting house. It's your ability to execute. And so the execution, the context around it, the change experience, how you make it real for people, that will never, ever go away. And the hiring decision and the people who make up the fabric of your organization, that is the single biggest, most important decision that you can make as a CEO, as someone in the C-suite. And so we can't lose sight of that. And I think you've articulated it brilliantly. Thank you so much, Yaseen, for sharing your story. Thank you for Luna. How can folks get in touch with you or learn more about Luna?
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Sheri. I'm glad that we finally made it happen. Finally. How can people get in touch? Well, you can reach out to, happy to connect on LinkedIn. My name's there at the bottom, Yaseen Ahmid. You can search Luna after that if you can't find me on LinkedIn. But LinkedIn is also available for Luna, Luna. And then we've also got a website. It's luna-resume.com.
Well, thank you so much, everyone who's listening. Make sure you connect with Yaseen on LinkedIn. Make sure you follow Luna. And more importantly, make sure you use Luna's service. I'm raising my hand. I'm going to become a customer. I don't know if that's a good thing for Yaseen. There's a lot of work here. All right, awesome. Thank you so much for joining.